What the heck is going on with Trek's brand new Madone Aero race bike, spotted for the first time at the weekend in France with a hole in the seat tube? And following the launch of the recent Pinarello Gravel F gravel bike, I asked a question of whether racing is going to ruin the future of gravel bikes for all of us. But first, before all of that, check out the brand new glorious group set from Shimano. So this is a brand new GRX limited edition group set, and I think it looks fabulous. So it's not a new group set as such, but a new version of the current GRX that's been around for a few years, but with the grey finish swapped for a lovely polished shiny silver finish, and it looks fantastic. They showed it and debuted it at Unbound over in the US over the weekend, and on every gravel bike they showed it on, it looks amazing and a breath of fresh air. For years we've had dull grey, carbon fibre and gloss black group sets, and not since 2004 with Dura-Race 7400 have we had a polished silver group set from Shimano. So it's long overdue. I think it looks fantastic and I can't wait to see it on my bike, but that might not happen because the clue is in the name. This is a limited edition group set. It's not a regular version alongside the current group set, but a limited edition. So if you want a group set, well, you have to be quick and probably patient. So the group set looks great, but the one thing it draws into the spotlight is the fact we might not see a brand new update to GRX. I'm talking 12 speed and that semi-wireless tech we've seen in Dura-Race and Ultegra, because I can't see them launching a new GRX 12 speed hot on the heels of a new limited edition group set. So what this new group set has done is push that launch back to maybe the end of the year or even early 2023 at worst. So watch your space for news on that brand new GRX. But for now, if you're very lucky and very patient and you know what strings to pull, try and get your hands on a new limited edition group set, because I think it will be in hot demand and will look fantastic on every gravel bike. Now onto that radical new Trek Madone that caused quite a stir on social media over the weekend, as it was spotted for the first time at the Dauphiné in France. Now Dauphiné is a small stage race in France that is a classic warm-up race for the riders and the manufacturers of new bikes before the Tour de France, which is just around the corner. And the reason we see bikes being debuted at this race and not the Tour de France is because there's too much pressure on the Tour de France for the riders and mechanics to ride new equipment there. So they use the Dauphiné as a final shakedown event for new bikes and equipment before they go into the Tour de France. So the Dauphiné has for many years been a happy hunting ground for tech nerds and bike geeks like you and I to see new equipment. Also very important for riders to make sure their fitness is where it needs to be and a bit of fine tuning here and there. But for bike geeks, a happy hunting ground. So Trek clearly has a new Madone. We know it's Madone because it's clearly the Madone and not the Amonda or the Domani, and because the Madone Aero race bike is a go-to race bike for most of the riders on the Trek Segafredo team. And a big change on the bike, as we can all see, is clearly that hole in the seat tube. Not since the Cannondale Synapse with a hole at the bottom of the seat tube have I seen something quite as funky and radical as this. And I have to admit, I quite like the look of it. I think it looks kind of cool, but what its purpose is anybody's guess. Now, the downside to manufacturers putting new bikes in the team at races like this before an official announcement is we have no actual details around the changes, which leads us to speculate. And speculation leads us down two avenues of thought: weight and aerodynamics. There could be a possible third, but I've no idea what that might be, so we'll focus on weight and aerodynamics for now. So weight is an obvious factor. The Madone isn't the lightest aero race bike, and we've seen aero race bikes being given that lightweight touch like the Specialized Tarmac SL7, and even the Amonda is now more aero than it used to be. And one key feature on the current Madone is the ISOSpeed decoupler, a device in the top tube that allows the seat post and seat tube to be separate from the top tube to allow a bit of fore and aft movement for more comfort. Borrowed from the Domani endurance bike where it first developed many years ago with Fabian Cancellara. And in my experience, riding that bike creates a bike that's not only fast in a straight line, but also a bike that won't beat you up on rough roads, which I had plenty of around where I live. So it's one of the smoother riding aero race bikes in this category. But the thing is, the pros don't really care about comfort. The one bit of feedback they always give manufacturers is, can you make it stiffer please? And then make it stiffer again. So likely the pros felt the ice-speed decoupler was an unneeded feature. So could you make it stiffer and maybe save some weight? So getting rid of the ice-speed decoupler would have saved a ton of weight and then helped to increase the stiffness. And we see the stiffness increase in the bottom bracket area, which is massive compared to the old bike. The other one is of course aerodynamics. Now for the last few years, aerodynamics have been converging down one sort of generic looking bike, drop rear stays, camtail shape, main tube, one piece handlebar stem, so on, internal cable routing. You know the score by now. So could this be an aero feature? Now I'm no aero expert, so we can only speculate here. And we know this part of the frame, the seat tube, seat post, get lots of messy air because by the time it gets to the point in the frame, it's been churned up and cut up by the front of the bike. And you've got the spinning legs as well. So very messy air to deal with there. So trying to manage the airflow must be really tricky. So maybe they found a way of managing the airflow coming off the front of the bike and where it's being churned up by the legs better in that area of the frame, decreasing pressure or something like that. But you are increasing the frontal surface area because you've got two parts of the frame rather than one part of the frame there. But another hunch could be that what they try to do is move the rear stays further away from the rear wheel, like we've seen on that Hope track bike and that Ribble as well, where they're trying to move the fork blade and the rear stays further away from the spinning wheels. And this hole in the seat tube could actually be a way of moving the rear stays away from that rear wheel without some crazy kink at the top of the seat tube junction. So just another hunch there really. But until Trek reveals the actual details on it, we can only speculate, so let me know what you think down below. And with no official word from Trek, it only leads to speculation like we're doing right now. And over my Twitter feed over the weekend, you gave me some fantastic replies for what this new feature might actually be. One person said it's a good place to stuff your sandwiches, which made me chuckle. It holds 2 bananas snugly, I like that. How many mini Mars bars can you get in there? That's a real answer we need to know. Somewhere to wedge a salad bag, now that's a really good idea. And a water bottle holder, said another person. So some fantastic insight there into what this new feature might actually be. And then some concerns around other aspects which I hadn't thought about until they mention it. So rear wheel spray going through that hole in the frame and onto a water bottle on a down tube. It being a cleaning nightmare. And then some concerns around the structural integrity of that design. But it is being ridden in the Dauphiné right now, so hopefully any issues like that will be ironed out. And I think that's enough about holes where they shouldn't be in bicycle frames, and let's turn to my weekly topic, my hot debate this week, and that is racing ruining the future of gravel bikes? And this was prompted by the launch of the recent Pinarello Gravel F, an update to their original gravel bike from a few years ago. And in their press release, they talked about it being faster, more aero, and stiffer than the old bike. And it's this last word, stiffer, that has me really concerned around the future of some gravel bikes and the gravel bike sector as a whole. We are well used to race bikes being made faster, lighter, stiffer than the ones that came before it for the last 10 or 15 years. The usual feedback from pro riders, people pay to race their bikes, they want it stiffer than the old bike, they want it lighter and faster as well. So do gravel bikes also need to be made stiffer like race bikes? Well, I've not ridden any gravel bike over the last few years and thought, what this bike needs to make it stiffer? No, that's never an issue. More comfort? Yes. Bigger tyres? Most definitely. But stiffer? Never. Now, of course, I don't race bikes. I ride bikes fairly fast, but I don't think stiffness is the direction that gravel bikes need to go in. Now, I get why Pinarello is doing this. Pinarello is doing what it knows best, making race bikes so people paid to race bikes, and why Dogma has been a very successful bike over the last few years. It doesn't really do comfort bikes or laid back riding bikes. It's all about racing. Everything's as stiff and light and aggressive as it can be. And my concern is they're bringing that approach from road racing to gravel. And it's been encouraged by the way gravel is going, especially the racing sector. We had the Unbound at a weekend, and that came to a 4-person sprint finish. So a very close finish after 200 miles of racing. Then we have the UCI World Champs, and it's only a natural consequence of any race format, whether road, gravel or mountain bike. It gets really serious at a pointy end. And the race is taken more seriously, there's more money coming to the sport, and the manufacturers, especially those like Pinarello, are really focused on making the bikes In a way, they know how to make bikes which is stiffer, lighter, faster, more aero. But if you're a regular Joe, a real world rider like you and I, you want a modicum of comfort. You want some compliance in your gravel bike, whether you're racing an amateur event or doing a bike packing adventure ride or just hacking around the woods and gravel tracks at a weekend. Yes, you want to go fast, but you want some comfort with your speed as well. And my concern with the direction that some companies like Pinarello and Nvidia are going with in their pursuit of speed is that they're leaving behind the customers for these bikes. And they're alienating newer gravel cyclists who want a slice of the gravel adventure bikepacking world, but don't want all that stiffness and speed. And all this has parallels with people buying Tour de France race replica bikes, but then finding they're too stiff and they're too aggressive for the riding they actually do, and finding an endurance bike which is more laid back and more comfort focused is actually a better bike for them. And what I think it's doing is creating an identity problem for gravel as a scene, as a category, as something to promote and talk about. On one hand, you've got all this race focus with the UCI World Champs, that Pinarello Gravel F, the Unbound or the ex-roadie pros winning sprints after 200 miles of racing on gravel, and bikes being developed for that type of riding being made stiffer than ever before. But the riding that most people are actually doing with these bikes that they're buying with their own hard-earned money is very distinct and different from that type of riding. It's more adventure, more bike packing, more comfort focused. And it is creating a divide between the two separate camps. So no longer is gravel is one thing, it's being split and torn into two very different areas. So you've got adventure, bike packing and gravel race, and are not one and the same. And the bikes are even very different. You've got the stiffness of that Pinarello Gravel F over here, and over here you've got the comfort of bikes like the Specialized Diverge, the Cannondale Topstone, the Lauf Grit, and many others with comfort features that are better suited to the riding we all do. And that does cause a problem if you're trying to choose a new gravel bike, because you could easily buy the wrong one, a road race bike with fat tyres, when what you actually want is a comfort focused bike packing option. So if you're not sure, then check out this video on 6 of the best gravel bikes available right now. And if you enjoy watching the video, don't forget to subscribe by hitting this button right here. But that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again very soon.